Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord Yahweh sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee. So remember that path and the journeyings that you had in the wilderness, in which the Lord humbled you and tried you, tested you, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. So the Lord put you through those things to prove and find out if you were truly be obedient right unto his commandments. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna, right? So he humbled you, right, by by causing you to be hungry, but then afterwards he fed you with manna, which thou knewest not. That's why it was called manna, right? What is it? Neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. And what that means is your life is sustained by the will or the word of the Lord, not by, physical victuals alone. And so by the Lord causing them, to starve or to go hungry for a bit, he showed them that your life and the preservation of it is really by me. Hence, in the wilderness, they didn't have the food and the victuals that they had in Egypt that would sustain them. But by the word of the Lord, he commanded manna to come down from heaven. And that is what, sustained them in the wilderness that whole time. So he was showing them that, your life, first and foremost is determined, all right, or preserved by the Lord. Okay, not by, food, even though you do need food to survive. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. So, while you spent 40 years in the wilderness, your clothing didn't get, shrink upon you, right? That's what it means by wax old, become moth-eaten and so on and so forth, right? And your feet didn't swell, you didn't get blisters or any of those things. You were fine because the Lord preserved you. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteneth his son, so the Lord thy God chasteneth thee. So keep in mind, right, that the same way a father would discipline his son, that's how the Lord disciplined you. Therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to fear him. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills. So you got a land, right, as it says, where you have water, right, rivers, you have wells, right, which you can dig from the waters that spring out from the valleys and the hills. And water was a very important resource, especially in that region. A land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates. A land of olive oil, and honey. A land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness, so you can have bread in abundance. Thou shalt not lack anything in it. A land whose stones are iron. And what that means is iron is as common as stones, right? And out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass. So it was rich in these metals. When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. Lest when thou hast eaten and art full, and hast built goodly houses and dwelt therein. Now the eaten and art full doesn't mean like, literally, but it means like you've had enough to where you're satisfied now in terms of not wanting or lacking in anything. And you now have houses and, everything is now nice and set up. Be careful that you don't get too comfortable and complacent that you start to forget the Lord. And when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, who led thee through that great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents, i.e. poisonous snakes, and scorpions, and drought, where there was no water, who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint. Right? So don't forget, this is the God who delivered you. He fed you, he preserved you, he protected you. He gave you water from a rock. Who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee to do thee good at thy latter end. So he humbled you, he tried you for your own good. And thou say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand hath gotten me this wealth. So Moses is saying, be careful and be mindful that after you have been blessed and increased, that you don't forget the Lord, the same Lord that delivered you, and then turn around and start to credit yourself and say it was by your power and your might that you got all this wealth. But thou shalt remember Yahweh thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day. So rather than forgetting and attributing it to yourself, remember that it is the Lord. Okay? And continue to follow his ways so he can fully establish that covenant with you, i.e. making good on the blessings of it. And it shall be, if thou do at all forget the Lord thy God, and walk after other gods, and serve them, and worship them, I testify against you this day that ye shall surely perish. So just know for sure that you will be destroyed. You're going to lose all of that, and you're going to be kicked out of that land. As the nations which the Lord Yahweh destroyed before your face, so shall ye perish. So just like the Lord destroyed the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and all that before you, that's how he's going to destroy you from off the land if you go astray, because you would not be obedient unto the voice of the Lord your God. And that brings us to the end of the book of Deuteronomy, the 8th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechak Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.